Hello, this week we are talking about the research paper proposal and how to find and evaluate sources for it using IVCC's resources. So let's go. The first thing I want you to do, if you have not done so already, is make sure that you have read the research paper proposal assignment in its entirety. So if you have not done that yet, please pause the video, head over to Blackboard, read the assignment sheet, and then come back here. So just to clarify how this unit will work, during this unit, we are preparing a proposal for the research paper that we will turn in during the next unit. So during this unit, we're going to begin thinking about the topic and subject of our research paper. And we will also begin considering some of the sources that we might be using for the research paper. So this is an assignment that will prepare us to write a really successful research paper. And it also allows me a chance as your professor to give you some feedback on your topic and on your sources to make sure that you're headed in the right direction before you get too far into the drafting process for the research paper itself. So again, for this unit, you will simply be writing the research paper proposal that you see here in front of you on the screen. And in our next unit, we'll be writing the research paper itself. Now, one really important aspect of this research paper proposal is that after you tell me all about your research question and all of the sort of elements of your paper that you plan to write, you are going to include a works cited page. Now, this works cited page should include 4 sources total. You will have one entry for your primary source, and if you have more than one primary source, I suppose you may have more than one entry for that. And then you will also have at least 3 secondary sources. So the research paper proposal should have at least 4 sources included with it, 1 primary and the 3 secondary. Now, the types of secondary sources that you're going to be looking for are a highly credible web source, a scholarly peer-reviewed source, and a book source. And please do note that ebooks are acceptable for that book source. Now, we've talked already this semester about creating keywords for searching and how to conduct effective searching online. During these units, we're going to talk a little more deeply about how to use different tools to find different types of sources, and of course, how to evaluate those sources to make sure that they are what you need for this type of writing. So the next page that I'm going to show you can be found on Jacobs Library's homepage. I did link to it from the unit overview document and from the syllabus as well. But if you're navigating from the library's homepage, this is the homepage in front of you. All you need to do is visit ivcc.edu/library and it will take you there. Click on research and then click on research help. Now you see in front of you 6 sort of buttons on the page, and your unit overview document asks you to read all 6 of these buttons and to watch all the videos that they contain. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you to do that, right? Make sure that you read everything on these pages and ask me any questions that you may have about it. However, I'm going to focus in a little more closely on about 3 or 4 buttons that have to do with different types of sources that we'll be using for the research paper and how to use IVCC's library resources to locate really effective sources. So the first thing I'll look at is this yellow button that says types of sources. Now, you might recall from what I just mentioned that in the research paper proposal and in the research paper itself, you will need to provide both credible popular sources, just sort of your regular everyday source, but you also need to provide scholarly articles. So I want to make sure that we're very clear on the difference between what makes something a popular source and what makes something a scholarly article. So let's start on the scholarly side. Now, one of the big reasons that we encourage you to use scholarly articles is that they are peer reviewed. So just the same way that we conduct peer reviews on our writing in our English courses, scholars also take their writing through a very intensive peer review process before it is published in a scholarly journal. Now, a journal is a publication that houses scholarly work, in case you're not sure about that. So journals are where we go to find scholarly articles. Oftentimes, journals are housed in things called library databases, which we will take a look at in a moment here. But what makes something a scholarly article? So a scholarly article is, number one, and most importantly, written by experts for experts. So it's always important that we consider the author's credentials and their affiliations. So you might think of scholarly work as a voice that's in an ongoing conversation, and you're going to add your voice to that conversation as you write your proposal and the research paper. But again, these scholarly articles are going to feature language that may be different than we're used to hearing. You might hear some technical, discipline-specific vocabulary, what we call jargon. And you might find that scholarly articles are a little bit harder to read than popular sources. And there's a good reason for that. Scholars who are writing for other experts don't need to worry as much about making their work accessible to the general public, right? Because they're writing for people who are knowledgeable in the field. People who are creating scholarly sources, People who are creating popular sources, on the other hand, are very concerned that their writing is accessible to sort of everyone. So when you're reading a scholarly work, you're going to find it's often denser, and it might be, you might have to read things 2 or 3 times. That's very common, again, because these are experts writing for experts. Another aspect of scholarly articles that you'll often notice is that they provide verifiable and reliable evidence for their claims. So just as we are asking you to provide sources and evidence for any claims that you're making in your paper, scholars do that as well. And in a moment, I'll show you sort of what a scholarly article looks like. And you'll see the way that these experts also provide things like citations and bibliographies to help build their own credibility. Lastly, most or all scholarly articles are peer-reviewed. So the peer review process that we do in our course is pretty simple. The editorial and peer review processes that scholarly articles go through is quite intensive. So for example, I happen to have a cousin who's a very highly regarded gender studies scholar at a university on the East Coast. And he said that when he publishes a new article, it can take anywhere from 1 to 3 years for it to traverse the editorial process. And often during that time, what happens is the writer submits their article to a committee or a team of experts for review, and the team provides feedback and sends that article back to the author and asks for corrections and revisions, just the same way I do with your essays. So overall, scholarly articles are peer-reviewed and are created by experts for experts. Now let's take a peek at what a scholarly article might look like. So here's an example. I like this little visual guide that they give you here to the kind of pieces and parts of a scholarly article that you can look for. So right off the bat, we'll notice that the article is published in a scholarly journal. This particular journal has to do with nursing, as you can see. So that's a good hint right off the bat that we're looking at something scholarly. The next thing I notice are the author's information and credentials. So you'll notice over here, we have about 6 or 7 different authors who worked on this article, and that's very common in a scholarly source, that it's sort of a team of people researching and writing and not just one person. We also see the different universities and departments and expertise that each of these people have. So right off the bat, the writers have established a lot of credibility for themselves. We have also an article abstract. Almost all scholarly articles that you look at are going to feature an abstract. And what an abstract is basically a brief summary of what the findings of this article were. So that's a really good tip for when you're reviewing different scholarly articles for your proposal or for your research paper. You don't and you shouldn't read the entire article. Instead, I would encourage you to look for that abstract, read it, and that can usually give you a pretty good heads up of whether this source is worth reading fully or whether you can put it to the side because it's not relevant. Again, if you were to zoom in and read the entire article, you would notice that the writers use scholarly language. So they're not interested in making things clear to the average reader. They're interested in offering really precise information and technical information to the other experts they expect will read this article. Lastly, you'll also notice that these experts have provided evidence in the form of citations within their essay. So in just the same way that we ask you folks to provide things like quotations, summaries, and paraphrases to help support your own claims, you'll notice these scholarly writers do that as well. And it doesn't show it in this particular example, but scholarly articles also always feature some kind of bibliography at the end. So you're always going to find a works cited page, a references page, a bibliography, endnotes, something like that, that gives you all the information for the sources they referenced in their essay. Now, as you're just looking at the sort of visual overview of this, you can see visually that scholarly articles often look quite different from popular sources. But let's hear a little bit more about what these popular sources might look like and how we can distinguish scholarly from popular. Now, a popular resource is usually more widely available, right? These are things like magazines and newspapers, web pages that are really widely available, and they are written for general audiences. So there may be an expert who is writing the source or creating the source, but they are not writing it for an audience of other experts. Instead, they're writing it for a general audience. That's one of the features that makes us consider it a popular source as opposed to a scholarly source. You will also often see things in popular sources like glossy pictures, catchy headlines and titles, lots of colors and advertisements. Any one of those things is a pretty good indicator that you're looking at a popular source. You will also often notice some stylistic elements. So there may be a catchy headline or a clickbait type of headline or title. You might notice that these articles are short, right? A scholarly article could be anywhere from 5 to 200 pages long. It just depends what the subject is. Most popular sources that you're going to find are going to be shorter than that. One other heads up that you're looking at a popular source is that they are not providing the types of references that you'll see in a scholarly source. So there may be little to no reference to where their information came from, and you'll almost never find a bibliography at the end, the way you would in a scholarly source. So they give us some examples of popular sources here, which would be magazines like Oprah or National Geographic. And I'm sure you can think of many other examples on your own. So just be very thoughtful as you're perusing your sources in distinguishing, am I looking at a popular source or am I looking at a scholarly source? They both have, uses in our writing, but certainly for the proposal and for the research paper assignment itself, you'll need to be very careful about paying attention to the types of sources that you're working with. So those were some types of sources. Now that we know the difference between these sources, let's talk about how to actually go about finding them. So there are many different places you can conduct research. Google, that's an okay place to go to find some stuff. Google Scholar, okay, that's a little bit better. But we have a better system here at IVCC that you can access, which is called SOAR. So there's about a 5-minute video here that I'm going to play for us, and I'm sharing the sound, so you should be able to hear it. And it's going to explain to you how to go about finding articles, online articles using IVCC's tools. So let's take a listen.
This video will cover the basic functions of SOAR, Jacobs Library's online catalog, and will provide you with the skills to be successful when navigating the library's resources. Beginning from the library's homepage, locate the search bar in the center of the SOAR search box. Use this search bar to access materials owned by Jacobs Library. You can enter your search terms directly into the box or simply click on the logo to be redirected to the catalog. The default search is Library Catalog, which excludes articles. So I recommend you click on the drop-down menu and switch from Library Catalog to Everything, which will allow you to search in most of the library's online resources. Your initial search will likely retrieve a large number of results. I recommend clicking on Advanced Search to help you narrow down your results. In the Advanced Search window, you can see that you can add additional keywords, filter by material type, language, start and end date of publication. You can also change your search parameters to search only in the library catalog, only articles. You can also search all iShare libraries or only in the EBSCO databases. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and stick with everything. I think I'm also going to add additional keywords. Next, I'll hit search. You can see that the results were reduced by quite a lot. You can also further refine or narrow the search results by using the facets located on the right-hand side of the web page. Some additional parameters include available online and resource type. You can also sort your results by relevance or date newest, to name a few. The facets will limit your results, making it easier to locate relevant resources. Once you have located a desired resource, select the title to reveal more information about this source. From the top, you will see a title of the source, named authors, date of publication, and availability. Next, you will find additional options which will allow you to email, save a permanent URL, and cite. If your article is an item online, select a link from which to view the article. Under Details, you will find subject headings, which may be useful to you in finding related resources. Finally, the description, otherwise known as the abstract, is a brief description of the resource and can be very useful as it provides an overview of the article. If you were to find this source useful, you could save or pin sources to your account to access them later. To save items, you will first have to sign in using your 7-digit IBCC ID number and password. If you need help creating or changing your password in SOAR, contact the library and we can help you. You can access your pinned resources in the top right corner next to your account information. Select your name to display a drop-down menu where you can view your library card, loans, requests, favorites, search history, and display language. Under the My Loans tab, you can view all of the items that you have checked out from the library and items checked out from other libraries. You can also renew items online from your account page. Thank you for viewing this video on SOAR Catalog Basics. For more tips and tricks, please visit the Researching at Jacobs Library section of the library's website.
Great. Okay, so that video was sort of a general introduction to SOAR. The next one I'm going to show you, which is a little bit shorter, specifically talks about how to find peer-reviewed articles in SOAR. So again, when you are looking for a scholarly article for the proposal or for the research paper, I'm going to recommend following the procedure that you're going to hear about right now.
This video will cover how to search for peer-reviewed articles in SOAR, Jacobs Library's online catalog, and will provide you with the skills to be successful when navigating the library's resources. Beginning from the library's homepage, locate the search bar in the center of the SOAR search box. Use this search bar to access materials owned by Jacobs Library. You can enter your search terms directly into the box or simply click the logo to be redirected to the catalog. Enter your search terms in the box and select Search. Using the facets on the right side of the page, you will see an option for peer-reviewed journals. Peer-reviewed journals are articles that have undergone a rigorous quality control process. When an article is published in a peer-reviewed journal, you can be certain that experts in the relevant field have read it and, independent of their own particular opinions, verified it to meet a high standard of scholarship. Scholars rely on peer review to ensure that the scholarship they exchange with each other is always based in good research and the established standards of their discipline. To find out more about the peer review process, navigate to Jacobs Library's Research Help page. Now, back to the search. If you find a useful article, select the title to view more information. From the record page, you will be able to access the article by selecting the journal title located underneath View Online. From this page, you will be able to select full text and view the article as a PDF. Another way to search for journal articles is to use the Advanced Search feature. Be sure that next to the search profile, you have selected Articles. Type in your keywords and hit Enter. Remember to pay attention to the facets located on the right side of the page. This is where you will be able to further refine your search results based on availability, subject, date, and more. You can access the library's A to Z database list from the menu of links at the top of the SOAR search page. The A to Z list is a comprehensive list of all of the databases the library currently has access to. You can browse databases by subject or database type. You can also see our most popular databases on the right side of the page. Thank you for viewing this video on searching for articles in SOAR. For more tips and tricks, please visit the Researching at Jacobs Library section of the library's website.
Okay, let me rewind a little bit right there because she kind of buzzed past an important aspect of this that I wanted to point out. Let me close this guy. So when you have conducted your sort of initial search and you've gotten your first search results, if you look over here down on the right-hand side, let me get back to that screen there. Under the availability, notice you have the option to select only peer-reviewed journals. So anything that appears in a peer-reviewed journal is automatically considered scholarly. So you can also use that little function to refine your results and make sure that what you are getting is only that scholarly stuff. Great. Okay, let me head back to my other buttons here. You can also, of course, use the SOAR search engine to find some books. Now, this particular video is much shorter. It does have some really loud music, so let me turn the volume down before I share the sound with you. Here we go. There you go. Now you can see me again. One thing that they didn't mention in the how to search for books video that we just viewed is that we can also obtain books from other libraries that IVCC's library is kind of hooked up with in what they call the iShare network. So it might happen once in a while that you get a search result for a material, but IVCC doesn't actually have the physical copy here at IVCC. In that case, you can do what's called an interlibrary loan. So they do also include a video at the bottom of this page that explains that. So if that would be useful for any of you, you might think about that. For example, one time I needed a DVD for a course and we didn't have the exact DVD that I wanted. So we were able to do an interlibrary loan and I borrowed it, I think, from Western Illinois University for a few weeks, which was great. Alrighty, one of the last highlights that I wanted to include in this video is the super important aspect of research, which is evaluating your sources. So no matter if you're looking on Google, Google Scholar, if you're searching in databases, if you're searching through books, it doesn't matter what type of source you are looking at. For the research paper proposal and for the research paper project itself, it is very important that the sources you select demonstrate to me that you understand how to conduct academic research. And one of the ways to demonstrate that skill is by selecting relevant, appropriate, and highly credible sources for these two projects. So I know you've read about this already. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but let's remind ourselves about some of the elements of our sources we should be paying attention to ensure that they are appropriate for us to use. So for all sources, we should always check for any sign of a bias, right? Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't use it if a source sort of shows their belief on something, but we should definitely be aware of that bias and how it could impact the information. We, of course, also want to assess the argument or the claims being made by the source. Sometimes you may want to cross-reference and double check things that a source says to make sure that the information they're presenting is accurate. So as I said, I'm not going to read all these bullet points on the screen to you, but hopefully you'll be doing that as part of your reading assignment and really be taking these ideas to heart. Now, when we're looking at web sources, and I would say this applies to any source, we definitely want to be very thoughtful about the authorship behind it, who's responsible for creating the source. We want to be thinking about the sponsorship behind the source, who is funding it, right? Where is the money coming from? Sometimes the URL can give you a little bit of information about that source. Now, I have a lot of students who end up in Comp 1 and Comp 2 with this idea that they should never use a .com source for research. And I'm here to blow up that belief. If a teacher or someone told you that in the past, that's incorrect. There are certainly plenty of commercial, sort of .com resources that provide valuable, useful information that would be considered reliable enough to use in research. On the flip side of that, just because a source ends in .edu does not make it a reliable source. That's another misperception that many students have, and that's just simply not the case. The example I often use is that I used to teach 6th grade and I had those students create web pages and they all ended in .edu. But if you cited from one of those sources, you'd be citing from like an 11-year-old. So that's probably not preferable. So it can give you a little information, but it's not, the be all end all of source evaluation. So we're thinking about author, we're thinking about sponsorship. We can also think about the purpose and the audience for the site. So what's the reasoning behind the source? What's their kind of goal with it? And then who are they creating this information for? The last thing we'll think about is the currency of the source. And in this case, currency doesn't have to do with money. We're talking about how recent the source is. So depending on your topic, that can really matter, right? But for some topics, it doesn't matter as much. If you're writing about William Shakespeare, I can imagine that there are some articles, maybe even from way back, in the 50s or 60s, that could still be useful and relevant. However, if you're writing about a modern author, or maybe in another class, let's say you're writing about, a medical procedure or something like that, you do want to make sure that your site is the most updated one that you can find. So the last bit I'll mention in this video for citing sources is just the resources that are available to you. So you've been reading all about citing sources this semester in the style book and in your empowered textbook as well. Also on Jacob's Libraries page, they do offer us some different helpful tidbits for citation. Do remember that in English class, we always use MLA style. I've had an unusual number of students this semester submitting essays using APA documentation style, or they're using something that I would call like APA-ish. It sort of seems like they're trying to do APA, but they're not even doing that correctly. So just a reminder that we do want to use MLA style for all of our work in our English classes. And you can find a lot of information about MLA right in the IVCC style book that you've been reading this semester. So if you do have questions about any of the sources that you've discovered already for the research paper proposal or for the research paper project, or if you are having trouble finding those sources in the first place, I strongly encourage you to get in touch with me or to get in touch with the experts at Jacob's Library. We will all be very helpful, very happy to help guide you through that process. And we look forward to getting in touch with you. So with any questions or concerns that you may have, please don't reach out to hesitate. Please don't reach out to get in touch. Okay, so I will stop right here. If you have any questions, please do let me know. And thanks for listening. Bye-bye.